The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple as I left the office. It was one of those rare days when I managed to escape the clutches of work before dark. The plan was simple: surprise Sarah with dinner from her favorite Italian place and maybe, just maybe, rekindle some of the magic that had been missing from our marriage lately. Little did I know, the universe had a different kind of surprise in store for me. As I approached the quaint little restaurant, my eyes caught a familiar figure mounting a sleek black motorcycle. It was Sarah, but not the Sarah I knew. This version of her was laughing carelessly, her arms wrapping around the waist of a man I didn't recognize. They sped off, leaving a cloud of dust and a storm of questions in their wake. A voice in my head urged me to follow them, to seek the truth, or perhaps to confirm my worst fears. The chase led me to a secluded part of the forest, known only to those seeking solace or secrecy. I parked my car at a distance and treaded softly, guided by the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation. There they were, in a clearing, their bodies intertwined in a way that left little to the imagination. My heart sank, but my hands remained steady as I took out my phone and captured the moment. The evidence of betrayal right there in my palm. "Enjoying the view?" I asked, stepping into the clearing. The words felt foreign, laced with a bitterness I didn't recognize. Sarah and her companion, startled, scrambled to their feet. Her face, once the source of my happiness, now twisted in shock and guilt. "James? What? How did you find you?" "Let's just say I wasn't expecting to see my wife playing damsel in distress with someone else's knight," I replied, the sarcasm dripping from each word. The man, now identified as Mike Johnson, a younger colleague from Sarah's office, looked from me to Sarah and back, his face a mask of confusion and fear. "Look, man, I didn't know she was." "Save it, Mike. I'm not interested in your excuses." I cut him off, my gaze fixed on Sarah. "I thought we had something special, Sarah. Was I just fooling myself?" Sarah's eyes welled with tears, her voice trembling. "James, please let me explain. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I laughed, a hollow sound devoid of any real humor. "I think it's exactly what it looks like. You here with him. That's all the explanation I need." The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the distant call of a night bird. The scene before me, once a place of natural beauty, now felt tainted by the ugliness of betrayal. I turned my back on them, on the life I thought I had, and walked away. The sound of Sarah calling my name faded into the background, drowned out by the cacophony of my own thoughts. The drive home was a blur, the images of Sarah and Mike burned into my mind. I realized then that the dinner, the attempt at rekindling our love, was nothing but a fool's errand. The real unveiling had happened in that forest, and it was more than just the end of a marriage. It was the shattering of an illusion, the death of trust, and the birth of a new, uncertain future. The house was eerily silent when I returned, the kind of quiet that screams in your ears. It was a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in my mind. I tossed the keys onto the kitchen counter, their clatter echoing through the empty space. The photos, those damning pieces of evidence, burned a hole in my pocket. I pulled them out, laying them on the table like a hand of cards nobody wanted to play. It wasn't long before the front door creaked open, heralding Sarah's return. Her footsteps were hesitant, a soft shuffle against the hardwood floor. I could feel her presence behind me before I even saw her, a palpable tension filling the air. "James, we need to talk," she began, her voice a mix of desperation and fear. I turned to face her, the photos now between us both physically and metaphorically. "Oh, we're well past talking, Sarah. I think these pictures say more than enough." She glanced at the table, her face draining of color as she saw the photos. "James, please let me explain. It's not what it seems." "Not what it seems," I echoed, my voice rising. "I saw you, Sarah. I saw the way you looked at him, the way you touched him. How is that not what it seems?" "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I love you, James." "Only you," she pleaded, reaching out to me. I recoiled from her touch as if burned. "A moment of weakness? Is that what you call it? And what about me, Sarah? Was I just a moment of strength then?" "James, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it," I retorted, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. "You betrayed our marriage, our vows. How can I ever trust you again?" "I don't know, but I'll do anything to make it right. Please, just give me a chance to explain," she implored, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. I shook my head, the decision clear in my mind. There's nothing left to explain, Sarah. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. It's over. Her sobs filled the room, a sorrowful symphony to the end of our marriage. James, please, don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, anything. I collected the photos from the table, my movements deliberate. No, Sarah. Some things can't be fixed. You broke us beyond repair. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. I suggest you think about what you've done and what you truly want, because it's clear to me now that what we had is gone. Leaving her there, amidst her tears and pleas, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But as I stepped out into the cool night air, I knew it was the only way forward. The confrontation had laid everything bare, the denial on her part a feeble attempt to salvage the unsalvageable. Our marriage, once a source of joy and companionship, had been irrevocably tainted by betrayal. And no amount of denial could change that harsh truth. The hotel room felt cold and impersonal, a stark reflection of the void inside me. I sat on the edge of the bed, the silence oppressive, broken only by the occasional hum of traffic from the street below. My mind replayed the confrontation with Sarah, her words a haunting echo that refused to fade. I had sought solitude to escape the pain, but found no respite in the quiet. It was late, the digital clock casting a soft glow in the darkened room, when my phone buzzed to life. A message from Sarah. My heart clenched at her name, a mix of anger and sorrow knotting in my chest. I debated ignoring it, but found myself unlocking the phone. Asterisk, please, James. We need to talk. There's more to this than you know. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow, 9 a.m. Asterisk. The request seemed like a plea, a final bid for understanding. Part of me yearned to ignore it, to sever all ties and attempt to heal. Yet another part, perhaps driven by the remnants of love or sheer curiosity, compelled me to consider her words. With a heavy sigh, I typed a response. Asterisk, fine. But this changes nothing. Asterisk. The cafe was quiet the next morning, the usual bustle of the city yet to begin. I arrived first, choosing a secluded table at the back. The minutes ticked by, each one stretching longer than the last, until finally Sarah appeared. She looked worn, her usual vibrancy dimmed by the events that had unfolded. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she took the seat opposite me. I nodded, my expression guarded. You said there was more to this. Explain. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. It wasn't just a mistake, James. I've been unhappy for a long time. I felt alone, even when you were right beside me. Mike, he was a mistake, but he was also a wake-up call for me. Unhappy? I echoed, disbelief and pain intermingled. Why did you say something? Why not try to fix us instead of seeking solace in someone else's arms? I wanted to tell you I did, but every time I tried, I saw how hard you were working, how much you were trying to provide for us. I didn't want to add to your burden, she replied, her eyes pleading for understanding. A burden? I scoffed, the words bitter. Our marriage, our relationship, was never meant to be a burden. It was supposed to be a partnership, Sarah. If you were struggling, I was there. You chose not to see that. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been so selfish, she admitted, her voice breaking. I've ruined everything. I don't expect forgiveness, James. I needed you to know the truth. The truth. A simple word with the power to shatter worlds. I looked at her, really looked, and saw not just the woman who had betrayed me, but the person I had loved for so long. The pain was still there, raw and unyielding, but so was the sliver of understanding. I appreciate your honesty, Sarah, but it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the betrayal, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I know, and I'll have to live with that. I just hope in time you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Not for us, but for yourself. Carrying around this anger and hurt, it's no way to live, she replied, a sad smile touching her lips. The meeting ended shortly after, both of us leaving with heavy hearts. The aftermath of Sarah's betrayal and our confrontation had left deep scars, ones that would take time to heal. As I walked away from the cafe, I realized that while forgiveness seemed like a distant possibility, the first steps towards healing had been taken. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since that fateful day, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a future where the pain of the past could be laid to rest. In the days following our meeting at the cafe, The world seemed to continue spinning, indifferent to the turmoil that had upended my life. I threw myself into work, using it as a shield against the onslaught of emotions that Sarah's confession had unleashed. Yet, no matter how much I tried to distract myself, my thoughts invariably drifted back to her words, her admission of loneliness, and the realization that our marriage had been crumbling long before it reached its breaking point. It was during one of these reflective moments that I received a call from Mark, Sarah's brother, and despite everything, still a friend. "James, we need to talk. Can we meet up?" His voice sounded strained, hinting at the gravity of what he wanted to discuss. We agreed to meet at a quiet bar downtown, a neutral ground far removed from the memories that haunted both our homes. As I sat across from Mark, his usual easygoing demeanor was replaced by a seriousness that set me on edge. "James, I know you're going through hell right now, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what Sarah did, and I'm sorry for what I'm about to tell you," he began, his gaze steady. "What is it?" I asked, bracing myself for yet another blow. "It's about Sarah, and why she did what she did. There's something you don't know, something she's been hiding not just from you, but from all of us," Mark revealed, his voice heavy with concern. I felt a chill run down my spine. "What are you talking about?" "Sarah's been dealing with depression, James, for years. She's been in and out of therapy, on medication. She's been struggling, and she didn't want you to know. She thought she could handle it on her own, thought it would go away, but it didn't. It only got worse," he explained, his words punctuated by the sorrow in his eyes. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All this time, Sarah had been fighting a battle I knew nothing about, carrying a burden too heavy for her to bear alone. Guilt, sharp and unyielding, pierced through the anger and betrayal I had been clinging to. Why didn't she tell me? I asked the question more to myself than to Mark. "She was scared, James. Scared of how you'd react. Scared it would make you see her differently. She wanted to be strong for you, for the both of you," he said, reaching across the table to place a reassuring hand on my arm. The conversation that followed was a blur of emotions and revelations, as Mark shared the extent of Sarah's struggle and her attempts to shield me from her pain. It painted a picture of a woman so consumed by her own darkness that she lost sight of the light around her, a light I had failed to see was dimming. As I left the bar that night, my mind was a tumult of conflicting emotions. Anger, betrayal, guilt, and beneath it all, a deep, aching sorrow for the woman I had loved, and in many ways, still did. The revelations of the evening forced me to confront the reality of our situation in a new light, challenging the narrative of blame and victimhood I had constructed. In the days that followed, I found myself at a crossroads, torn between the desire to move on from the pain and the realization that the path to healing was not through avoidance, but through understanding and perhaps forgiveness. The decision came to me one quiet evening, as I sat alone in the home Sarah and I had shared, surrounded by memories of better times. It was time to let go of the anger, to forgive not just Sarah, but myself as well. It was time to face the future, whatever it may hold, with a heart unburdened by the past. I picked up the phone and dialed her number, my heart racing as I waited for her to answer. "Sarah, it's James. We need to talk. I'm ready to listen. Really listen this time." The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the need for healing on both sides. But as I took that first step towards reconciliation, I knew it was the only way forward, a chance to find peace amidst the wreckage of what had been and perhaps build something new from the ashes. The days turned into weeks as Sarah and I embarked on a journey neither of us had anticipated. It was a path fraught with difficult conversations, moments of vulnerability, and the slow, painstaking work of rebuilding trust. We sought the help of a marriage counselor, Dr. Ellis, whose calm demeanor and insightful questions provided a safe space for us to unravel the tangled web of emotions and misunderstandings that had led us to the brink of collapse. One particularly pivotal session began with Dr. Ellis posing the question that cut to the heart of our issues. "What do you both want from this relationship moving forward?" she asked, her pen poised above her notepad. I glanced at Sarah, who looked back at me with a mixture of apprehension and hope. Taking a deep breath, I spoke first. "I want to understand," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I want to understand what happened, why it happened, and how we can prevent it from ever happening again. But more than that, I want to rebuild our connection, find the love that got lost along the way." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she listened to my words, After a moment, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. I want forgiveness, she began, pausing to collect her thoughts. Not just your forgiveness, James, but forgiveness for myself. I've been carrying this guilt, this shame, and it's been eating away at me. I want to move past it to heal. And I want to rediscover who we are, both as individuals and as a couple. I want us to be happy again. Dr. Ellis nodded, encouraging us to delve deeper into these desires, to explore the fears and insecurities that had kept us from fully expressing them before. It was a session that marked a turning point for us, one that brought a newfound understanding and a glimmer of hope. As we continued our work with Dr. Ellis, and on our own, Sarah, and I began to reconnect in ways we hadn't in years. We started with small steps, sharing our thoughts and feelings openly, spending quality time together, and gradually reintroducing intimacy into our relationship. It was a slow process, filled with moments of backsliding and doubt, but also moments of profound connection and healing. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me, her hand finding mine. Do you think we can really make it through this? She asked, her voice a whisper in the fading light. I squeezed her hand, searching for the words to express the cautious optimism that had begun to take root in my heart. I don't know, I admitted, but I do know that I'm willing to try, and that has to count for something, right? Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder, a gesture so familiar and yet so precious in its newfound significance. It counts for everything, she replied, her words carrying the weight of our shared journey. The road to healing was long and winding, with no clear endpoint in sight. But as Sarah and I walked it together, we discovered a new horizon, one where the pain of the past didn't define us, but rather informed a deeper, more resilient love. It was a love not of fairy tales, but of reality, forged in the fire of adversity and strengthened by the willingness to face our demons together. And as we looked towards the future, whatever it might hold, we did so with the understanding that while the scars of our past would always be a part of us, they no longer held the power to dictate our course. In the end, it was not a story of betrayal and revenge, but one of forgiveness, growth, and the enduring power of love to heal the deepest of wounds.